Liberty Nation with Tim Donner.
Lectures from Hell. It's a wildly popular new series running on LibertyNation.com, fashioned after the screw tape letters of the great C.S. Lewis, all about the techniques employed by the forces of darkness to keep the world in the dark and trick people into following along dutifully. And the author of this brilliant series, Onar, joins us from his native Norway. Onar, delighted to have you back on Liberty Nation Radio.
Thank you, Tim. It's great to be back.
So what was the inspiration for the series, which is now in 18 parts on LibertyNation.com?
Well, Lisa Donner advised me to read the Screwtape Letters after I had been writing about Jordan Peterson and things related to Jordan Peterson. And I took her up on the advice, and I read it, and I was very fascinated by giving voice to a devil, to give evil a voice, because normally you don't hear evil. Evil is just lurking in the background, and to actually see it fleshed out was very fascinating to me. So I was inspired to write the series based on that.
Okay, I want to talk about a few of the specific titles in your Lectures from Hell series. What is demonic ventriloquism?
That's actually a term that is invented by C.S. Lewis. And he rather than using the term demonic possession, he thinks of it as a puppet and a puppet master. And when you are giving into evil forces from your unconscious, then you're being controlled by a demon that is sort of his basic idea. And I built on that and continued on his track, so to speak.
Okay, another of your titles in the series is entitled Word Control is Mind Control. Have the forces of darkness succeeded in gaslighting us with language?
Absolutely. And we cannot think without words. So if you want to steal someone's mind, you steal their words. If you want to darken their minds, you have to take away their words so that they cannot speak and they cannot think. And that is something that's very real, that's happening, and it's done actively in academia. And I think the way I'm describing it through as like a demonic process is very apt.
Now, another of the titles is called Existence is Violence, which that had me kind of chuckling and weeping all at the same time. But is that like silence is violence used by racial warriors to decry people who refuse to proclaim they are actively anti-racist?
That is one special case of existence is violence. I actually started out with silence is violence, and I just extrapolated and generalized it, because the very basic idea of socialism, and you can also argue for demonic forces, is that existence is a form of tyranny. You have to follow rules. You have to obey the laws of physics. You have to follow morality in order to have a good life. And the word that is given for Satan in the Bible is the rebel. If you want to summarize the Satan in one word, it's the rebel or rebellion. And he rebels against existence, and because he thinks of that as violence. So I think that this fits very nicely in with your interpretation of silence is violence. This is just a generalization.
Another of your 18 pieces is called The Power of Socialism, which is a little bit more straightforward. But are you saying that socialism is, in effect, darkness?
It appeals to the dark forces in your mind. The first story in the Bible about human beings, this is a point that Jordan Peterson makes, about real people, is about Cain and Abel. That's the first story about real humans in the Bible. And Cain is overcome by envy. And in secular terms, this was later rephrased by Ayn Rand as hatred of the good for being good. That is basically envy. Cain hated Abel for being able, for being good, and not for being bad. And so he killed his moral ideal. And I think that summarizes the core of socialism. And that also summarizes the essence of Satan. He is envious of God and wants to destroy everything that God stands for existence.
What about people that are atheists or pretty much, agnostic? They believe maybe there's a God, but they don't think much about it. Are all of these titles, is this whole sense of lectures from hell as relevant for someone who's not a believer in God as someone who is?
Well, this is interesting because I myself could be classified as that, but I recognize that 90% of atheists they turn to very bad behavior when they leave religion. And I think that, in fact, when Christianity now has faded into the background and in modern society, the greatest loss may not be the loss of God, but be the loss of the knowledge of evil personified, Satan. By not knowing about that kind of personification, we lose the language that we used to have to describe precisely the kind of forces that turns us to darkness. And I think that's very relevant, even if you are an atheist.
One of the impressionistic titles in your series is called Make Them Hate the Rainbow. What does rainbow mean here, and why are we supposed to hate it?
Well, I'm alluding to the story of Noah's Ark, and that's the Rainbow Alliance or Rainbow Coalition, where God makes a pact with humans. As long as there's a rainbow, there will never be a flood again. This used to be a common knowledge among Christians. The rainbow used to be a Christian symbol. Now it's a symbol of the Pride Parade. The Pride Parade could have put out a lot of people showing that they are decent human beings, but it's instead being used as sort of some kind of freak show instead. So the depravity that you see that is now associated with the rainbow is a way of stealing good symbols and good words. This used to be a good symbol, and now Christians are actively turning away from the rainbow because they associate it with something bad. And that is actually a way that dark forces win in the world, by tainting good symbols.
Well, they've co-opted the rainbow just like they co-opted the word gay. Gay used to mean something very different than it does now. But before we let you go, did writing this series, Onar, on the techniques employed by the forces of darkness, because you've done it in great depth now, did it change you personally, spiritually at all? And if so, how?
No, actually, I don't think so. I think I was just ready to write that series. I've had a lot of experiences with evil, if you like, and that experience has enabled me to personify it, to write about it in a believable manner. So for me, this was actually quite easy, because I'm just putting into paper things that I've experienced and seen clearly. So for me, this is just the end station of a process that I've been through for a long time.
Onar, thanks so much for joining us.
Thank you.
Onar joining us from his native Norway, and you couldn't spend your time much better than to read his series, Lectures from Hell, on LibertyNation.com.
Hi, I'm Lisa K. Donner, along with Mark Angelides, Sarah Cowgill, Tim Donner, and Scott Cosenza, and this is Liberty Nation.
Now let's take a look at the LibertyNation.com electoral leaderboard. It's still 238 for Joe Biden.
What if stories and legends can offer us the key to unraveling the hottest political issues of the day and apply their lessons to understanding the chaos of modern politics?
Impeach 45!
only where freedom of speech is honored can people who look, sound, or think differently be truly free.
If you're discussing something that's difficult, the probability that you're not going to offend each other is zero.
President-elect of the United States of America, Donald Trump.
Donald J. Trump is now president.
With one click, Liberty Nation delivers tomorrow's news.
And remember, liberty.
Today.
All the time and everywhere.
LibertyNation.com